Beyond the Mic with Sean Dillon.
We're joined on the Starline by a former West Point cadet who ended up selling peanut butter and chips. You might have seen him in Chocolate Coins, Punching Henry, Last Comic Standing, and his wildly successful comedy tour, highlighted by Where the Field Corn Grows. His latest stand-up special, The Salesman, is now streaming on YouTube. We welcome back our friend, Greg Warren.
Hey, what's up, man?
Absolutely great, Greg. Let's return Beyond the Mic. Last time we talked to you was during the pandemic in your last special. How did the time away from the laughter make you appreciate it even more?
A lot, man. I had a ton of free time during that thing. Amazing amount. I did nothing with it. Like
Nothing?
Yeah, I mean, I did write some jokes. I felt like I could have learned all this stuff, and I didn't. You know what? I've never learned poison ivy, really. I don't know what it looks like. I'm always amazed by people when we're in nature and like, well, that's poison ivy. Stay away from it. I'm like, why would I have no idea? Like, I've seen pictures of it. I just get out there and I freeze up, Poison ivy. No, Greg, that's actually romaine lettuce. We're at the Olive Garden. Yeah. No, I mean, and they have that little rhyme. Leaves of 3, let it be. Oh, thanks for the poem, but it did not help. Like, this thing has the word poison in it. Is that how we're handling poisons now? Rhymes? When it comes to nerve gas, say, I pass. It's like, I've been out there in the forest. Those leaves bunch up. I don't know how to count them. Is that 9 leaves of 3 or 1 leaf of 27? I don't know.
You're still itchy, aren't you?
Still itchy. Yeah, man, that'll ruin your summer, that right there. It's a steep price to pay for not knowing how many leaves are supposed to be on a weed.
That's what you get for wiping with it. In The Salesman, you break down the tough times before you became a comedian selling Proctor Gamble products. Looking back, what's the best and worst memory from those times?
Well, I mean, I would say the Simply Jif introduction was pretty proud moment for me. That was the first low salt, low sugar peanut butter to be entered into the category. It was called Simply Jif, targeted towards diabetics. I wanted to name it Type 2 Peanut Goo, but nobody was on board. So, but that was a proud moment. Fat-free Pringles was a disappointment. It was a bust. Olestra. That didn't work out well for all of us. So that was a tough one to take. But Pringles survived. The brand survived. It's thriving. A great brand. I don't know if you know, the government sort of came after Pringles in the late 60s. Did you know that?
No. Why?
Yeah, I think maybe early 70s. Basically, they said you're made up of corn and soy and wheat and potatoes. You're not 100% potatoes. You can't call yourselves potato chips. You have to call yourselves potato crisps.
Wow.
And we did. And people were like, yeah, we still like them, and the government was like, they're not made of 100% potatoes. And people were like, yeah, we kind of figured that when they were uniformly stacked on top of each other in the perfect shape of a horse saddle. Like, we got it, guys.
Are you shocked Procter & Gamble survived after you left?
It's a pretty good company. Now, I will say those brands didn't. Those brands all got spun off. They got out of the food beverage business shortly after I left.
Wow.
Coincidence? I'm not sure. But, yeah, no more. I sold Duncan Hines, Crisco, Hawaiian Punch. I think, Smucker's owns Jif now. And this is pretty huge. Mark Smucker, the CEO of Smucker's, watched the special last weekend and enjoyed it. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Greg, as you put together this special, what's the story or joke you told? And after a second thought, I'm out.
There was one chunk of material that was all about college mascots and college cheers, and it really did well. It really did well, but it didn't fit. It just felt like sort of a separate thing from the rest of the special. And my director and producing partner, Nate Bargassi, who's a really, really great comedian and successful comedian, Nate suggested that maybe we take that out and just use that as like sort of bonus content or something. I was reluctant because it's like, man, it kills. And then I watched it without it, and I was like, he's exactly right.
Greg, how has what made you laugh changed from when you were younger to today?
Well, I think it's, as a comedian, for better or worse, like, you just are exposed to so many premises. So what really makes me kind of laugh, I don't know what makes me laugh. It's hard, but what I really like from a comedian is when I'm like, oh, I never heard anybody talk about that before. You know, that to me is like, I'm almost laughing before I get to the punchline. I'm laughing at the premise. I'm like, oh man, I never heard anybody talk about that. This is so great.
Greg Warren, comedian, joins us beyond the mic for the Rocky Nate. Greg, you know it. It's 8 random questions. Answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. There is no pressure.
Okay. Feel pressure.
From the Greg Warren Company CB Slang Dictionary, what's your favorite CB slang phrase from the 1970s?
Fluff stuff is snow.
Have you ever finished a New York Times Sunday crossword puzzle?
Yes, several.
And while we're talking about this, what happened to your One Down podcast?
Well, our 7 listeners loved it.
Yes.
But
we must share the same listeners. Favorite snack other than popcorn at the movies?
Junior Mints.
Now, do you buy them or do you sneak them in?
Buy them, man. Buy them. I'm not a chiseler. You know, I'll pay whatever. Just because, you know, it's like I want people to buy comedy tickets.
Are you an XFL fan or not?
I'm thrilled that they exist, and I'm thrilled that they have a team in St. Louis. I haven't done my job as far as following them, though.
Greg, what scares you other than Proctor Gamble expense reports?
Snakes.
Why?
I mean, they're terrifying, man.
Really? I avoid snakes.
All right, I'll give you a couple of things. Did you know when you cut a snake's head off, it can still bite you? Yeah, they can bite you. When a severed snake head can bite you. I think it's the same for a clown head, but I'm not sure.
Leave my ex-wife out of this. You were an All-American wrestler at Missouri. What cartoon character would describe your wrestling skills today?
Wylie Coyote.
Interesting choice. Why?
Well, he makes some poor decisions, and I made some poor math decisions as I look back. I think I could have been better.
What is your perfect pairing with coffee?
I don't drink coffee. Tea, man. Tea. Every morning. Best part of my day.
So what kind of tea do you like?
Well, Starbucks has an Emperor's Cloud tea that's awful good. There's a Himalayan mist tea at this coffee shop in St. Louis that I get. And then every now and then, like a good English breakfast tea. Earl Grey tea, don't care for it. Earl Grey iced tea, it'll go in the garbage after one sip. And I did that 3 days ago. Yeah, I asked for a black iced tea, and they gave me Earl Grey iced tea, and it went right in the garbage.
Only time I go to Starbucks is when I'm about to get sick, and then I go in for a medicine ball.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's a medical thing.
Exactly, it's medicinal.
Yeah.
What's your favorite story from your parents?
They had a landlord, and they were broke when they had me, and they couldn't pay the rent, and they gave the landlord liked this chair that they had. And I'm looking at it right now. It's in my place. But they liked this chair. And so he took the chair from them. And then like 30 or 40 years later, the landlord somehow found them in a different town and was like, I've always felt guilty about that. And he gave him the chair back.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
If you're enjoying these conversations, please check out another Beyond the Mic episode to find more actors, artists, and people you need to know. We'd also appreciate a like and subscribe on the Good Pods app. Comedian Greg Warren joins us for the back half Beyond the Mic. What goes into a special and how in-depth do you get with it? And how did working with Nate Bargatze made it easy?
Well, Nate was really kind of hands-off as far as like what material I should do. He was really helpful with here's what you should wear, here's what I want the set design to look like and the lighting, because I have no perspective on any of that stuff. So he was great with that. And then, you know, he had about 3 notes with the edit, and they were all great. They were, you know, and I kind of was like, hey, man, Nate knows what he's talking about. So I just took them sight unseen, and they were all really, really helpful. One of the things that he suggested really at the end was, you know, we sort of started the special traditionally like you'd see a lot of stand-up specials where it's like, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Greg Warren. You see me, walk up and you hear some music, and then, you see me shake hands and the crowd goes, crazy. And then I say, thank you. And then I start. Like really late in the editing process, Nate was like, you know what, man? I really like the first joke. Let's just flash up a title card and then go right to that joke. And I was like, I don't know, buddy. And then it's perfect. It's exactly how I want it. It was such a great idea.
Is it good to do what people don't expect you to do?
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, it's funny. I think there's people that like set out to do that. And I think you can tell they're just trying desperately to stand out. Or there's people that like just, organically have a different perspective. And those are the most interesting people to me.
Growing up, who are the comedians you looked up to and made you laugh?
Well, Eddie Murphy was the first one. And Bob Newhart was a guy that I really, really liked. And then once I started, being around comedy, there were some. Daryl Hammond was a guy that I saw early on that I really liked. And then, I got to work with Mitch Hedberg a few times, who was genius. I got to work with Dave Attell a couple times, who's another genius. A guy named Ron Morey and Billy Gardell and Mark Gross and Joe Zimmerman and Gary Goldman, and the list of comedians I admire could go on forever. But those are a few. Nate is, if you watch Nate's last special, it's as good of a piece of comedy as you'll ever see. And Nate, he produced 3 specials. One of them came before me, Mike Vecchione. It's really, really great stuff. It's just packed with jokes and it's really funny and original. And then Joe Zimmerman, who I mentioned just a minute ago, but like Joe is going to be the 3rd installment, probably in a couple of months. And Joe is, man, he's funny. He is really, really funny.
How has comedians changed the way you see your own comedy?
I think it's, because I've been exposed to so much comedy in the last 30 years or whatever, I think it's probably more gradual, and I don't think about it that much. It's just part of my life, is you're going to see other comics, and I'm sure through osmosis, it creeps in, and it starts to help you form like what you think a good joke is, or maybe you learn technique a little bit, or maybe you just appreciate it. But it's hard to really think about because I'm so close to it, and it's sort of pervasive. It's just part of my life is that I'm going to see comedy every week.
Was there a comedian you didn't get in the beginning, but the more you saw them, the more you appreciated of them?
Man, that's a good question. Not necessarily that I think like there's like Lenny Bruce. I didn't really quite understand it just because it's so much lingo from back then. And I haven't given, I should probably go back and give it a second chance and listen, because obviously there's something really special about him. But I didn't quite understand everything he was doing.
Who are the comedians today that are the future of this business? I mean, who pushes you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anybody pushes me. Because I think that's got to come from within. And I think some people are pushed by other comedians. I'm not really competitive with other comedians, but Nate is a superstar. Nate does push me in a way that like the volume of material that he writes, like he had a special come out and he's already got another out. And I'm like, all right, I don't. So I need to get to it. So yeah, actually Nate does push me on. I think of it. We did a show in Nashville a couple months ago where it's like new material night, and Nate had a lot and I had a little, and I was like, okay, it's time to get to work. Mike Vecchione's similar. I think this guy Joe Zimmerman is so unique and so funny. I sat down with him. Every now and then we'll do a thing called Joke Machine. We'll write together a little bit, and it's just some of the premises he has are great. A guy named Brendan Ayer is another guy who's really, really funny, and I feel like he's just about to break, and I think his next project is going to be something really special.
You did the One Down podcast with him, right?
Yeah. He was my my co-host on that failed project. Yeah, it's all his fault.
Greg, how has failure changed you, and how has it made you grow?
It's interesting. I think, I think you either quit or you get better, So there's some times when I, was like, thought I was, sort of pronounced myself out of the business. I was like, well, I failed at that thing. I should have done better there. That opportunity didn't, make me a superstar. So, I must be done. And I'd pout for a while or whatever. And then I got back to writing and all kinds of cool things happened. So I've tried to learn, like, if something goes bad, take your day to be a baby about it and then get going the next day. Get going on just get the pen to the paper and start thinking about, what's the next thing that's going to be funny.
Comedian Greg Warren joins us beyond the mic for one big question. Comedians being attacked on stage, beers thrown on them. How has your job changed and evolved from just making people laugh to making people laugh without getting attacked, without offending them too much, but offending them a little?
It hasn't been very different from me. Some of the stuff is ridiculous. But my friend, one of my really good friends is the girl that got a beer can thrown at her, and she handled it like a champion, Ariel Elias. It's just despicable that somebody would do that. But I don't know. I haven't had to deal with much of that. I'm lucky. I mean, some people, I got one email on the special. This lady, I do a thing about nurses on there. I'm just making fun of nurse practitioners a little bit. And she reached out and said, hey, you're despicable. She said, I'm a nurse practitioner and I watch your special and I used to be a fan and now I'm not because you made fun of nurse practitioners. And I felt bad, and I wrote her back and said, hey, I don't want to make anybody upset by my comedy. But next time, could you just have a doctor reach out to me? Because I don't trust nurse practitioners.
I once got an email that said your podcast sucked, and I replied, thanks, Mom. Tell Dad I love him. He hates coffee, but loves tea. Describes his wrestling skills as Wylie Coyote and is terrified of poison ivy and snakes. You need to watch him in The Salesman on YouTube. Greg Warren, thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
You bet, buddy. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thanks for doing that, man.
And that, my friends, is Beyond the Mic.